Welcome, everyone. My name is Olia. I lead Developer Experience at Rootstock Labs. Rootstock is the first and longest running Bitcoin sidechain. What makes Rootstock special is that it's fully EVM compatible, so you can write your smart contracts in Solidity and use a variety of EVM compatible tools. We've created this particular series to walk you through some of these tools and integrations to make sure that you are fully equipped for building on Bitcoin with Rootstock. Today, we are talking about probably one of the most important tools, if not the, for building on any blockchain, not just Rootstock, which is the Explorer. In particular, we'll be talking about the Rootstock Explorer. We have wonderful Nico with us today, who is part of the Rootstock Labs Developer Experience team. All right, let's jump in. Nico, welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, guys. Yeah, thanks, Oli. Thanks for having me here. And yeah, well, as you said, I'm working on the DevEx team in the main infrastructure tools for the Rootstock blockchain. This means the Blockchain Explorer, among other projects. So, well, let's jump into the presentation.
What is an Explorer?
Okay, great. Nice question. What is an Explorer first? Let's move to our Explorer so we can start showing it. Well, since we have the blockchain data, we first need to understand that the format itself needs to be stored in a very efficient way. This means that we can actually take that much advantage from it in its natural form. So this is where an Explorer comes useful, because all the data is actually formatted and also enriched, so we can take useful insights and actually give it a meaningful to the data. So that's why we need one. How does it work? We have actually a separated process which is in charge of reading all the blockchain data and storing it in a proper database, which then we can consume and show all this data. Okay? So that's basically it.
So, Nico, does every blockchain have its own Explorer?
Yeah. The thing with it is that you can actually have your very own Explorer. This means maintain it by yourself, or you can actually leave this as consume this as an external service. You know, that's because let's say the biggest platform, like for example Letterscan, actually provides its service, which is called Explorer as a Service. We have our own very own Explorer, and we also have one called Block Scout. So have them too. This is the one. But yeah, the plan today is to showcase our very own Explorer.
Awesome. So there are options, right? You can use Block Scout, you can use 3XPL, I believe, with Rootstock. But today we're looking at our own product, which we built in-house.
Exactly. Let's move forward to the homepage for the Explorer. Here you are going to see another information about the blockchain and the latest blocks. So we can see some values like the network hash rate, which is actually how much network power do we have right now. So the total value logged here in our network, this is actually like probably 4,000 BTC logged. And well, some other data like the total locking up capacity, the active accounts, and well, some data about the latest blocks and transactions. So in the blocks tab, if we go here, we can see that, of course, we have some data in this table, some main data about the blocks. Let's check out one block. Here we can see the overall data for a single block, but we have some extra fields that we can extract from it, so it's useful for the devs or users itself. For example, we have here the miner, some data about the merge mining stuff, because, or as you know, our security relies on the Bitcoin system, so that's why we have some this related data, since our miners actually are Bitcoin miners too. So yeah, that's basically it. And then we have some data here about the block itself, about the value movement. Okay, we have the transactions, and this is more like a devs tab. You can actually track what happened between the transactions. These internal transactions are like smaller transactions itself. So the next tab is transactions. Here, as we saw in the blocks tab, we can see also some data about them, but in the details page, we can check everything. So here, for example, the most important fields you are going to look to are the from and the to fields. So as you can see who sent the transaction and who received it. And then we have the logs tab, which is useful in the case that you are interacting with a contract. Let's say, for example, making a token transfer or whatever event since you are interacting with a contract. Okay. In this case, there wasn't particularly any token transfer, so we are going to see this empty. And that's basically it for this tab.
Assuming for the transaction also what we when we're building something, what we're checking is the status, right? If it was successful or not, and that's kind of
exactly right. Yeah. We are going to show this in the mini workshop that I have prepared. But yeah, you can actually check the state of the transaction since we have to wait some time for that. Now the addresses tab. Here we can see, of course, an overall showcase of the addresses, but usually you're going to check for a specific address by looking at the search bar. So here you can see specific data for this address. In this case, I just clicked on a contract address, so we are going to see a bit more of information. So let's check a bit a simpler one. Maybe if I have some, okay, here this is an account. This is going to work. You can see we have fewer details because we only need to track the value itself that contains as RBTC and the latest block that it registered activity. So we have several tabs here for the addresses. This one we already know it, the transactions too. The tokens one will show up all the tokens that this particular account has. We are going to check this in the address that we are going to use for the mini workshop, so don't worry. Then we have the events tab. Let's check the tokens tab. Here, as you can see, since I'm a dev, I'm actually testing a lot of tokens or sample contracts, and I have a lot of tokens. So yeah, you can actually see this. Then for the events tab, you're going to see all the events where my address was involved and the contracts that emitted these events, okay? And you are going to, you will be able to see the details by clicking on the event, okay? I'm going to stop on this later. Let's go back so we can finish explaining the tabs. The tokens transfers tab, particularly for this tab. Okay, and then for the token transfers tab, we can see that this is actually like a subset of the events tab. Here we are filtering by the transfer events. This is mostly the ERC20 token transfers, basically a standard, and we can see all the transfers here. Okay. Finally, we have the balances history. As you can see, the latest balance that this address has right now is this one, but in the past, this balance changed, as you can see here. So that's basically it for the addresses tab. Then we have the tokens tab. Here, as I said before with the subset stuff, this is going to be a subset of addresses that are actually contract tokens. So, for example, moving on to the tokens tab, we can see the latest token contracts that are created. Okay, so for example, let's take this one. We can see overall data, and particularly we are going to see all the contract interfaces that a contract can have are going to be listed here. Okay, this is very much the same task for the addresses, but for the contract tokens ones, we are going to have an accounts tab. Okay, this is actually going to contain all the information for this contract about the addresses that have value for this particular contract, right? So here, for example, I don't know who deployed this contract, maybe for some testing purposes, and we have that there are two accounts here. Okay. This is the address 0 because this is probably was probably used for a minting, and this it's probably the owner. So yeah, that's basically it. Okay, then we have the apps tab, which is going to showcase the most important applications for Rootstock. we have the address listed here, and we can actually go and check more information about the protocols itself in case you want. Okay, so then we have the statistics tab. I'm not going to dive much deeper in this one because this is more like blockchain metrics stuff itself. Most users are going to stick with the Explorer itself, so you can actually track the blockchain data from here. Okay, you have a lot of metrics. Oh, great! So as you can see, an Explorer provides a lot of information. It depends basically if you are a normal user who makes transactions, move value, or you are a dev. You can in both ways find it useful because consuming all the data in an enriched format is always going to be easier than actually requesting the data to a node, which will provide you the data in a very raw format. So that's why we have explorers for all the blockchains.
Right, Nico, let me just ask you a question.
Okay.
Right, looks good. Thanks so much for walking us through. I can see in the right top corner there's a toggle between Testnet and Mainnet. So we obviously have a version for each, right? Are there any differences between the two?
Yeah. Good question. The thing with the network types is that since blockchain data is immutable, for contract development in Mainnet, actually we are using real money. So that's why Testnet network exists. So we can actually test everything without actually spending money. Okay, it's like fake money. So if we go here, we're going to see all the data from a blockchain that moves real value. So all the apps here are actually in each transaction having a cost. Okay, all the transactions here. That's the main difference, and that's why it's really useful to have a testnet network.
What we're seeing in Mainnet then it is RBTC, whereas actually the token that we're seeing transferred in the testnet, that would be TRBTC. Is that correct?
That's right. We are going to have here all the transactions that move value in RBTC, which is a native currency for Rootstock, but in Mainnet. Okay, and for testnet we are going to see the very same, but with a TRBTC value. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great. So I think we can move on to the mini workshop. The plan is to explain also the interactive part of the Explorer, since you not only can consume information, but also interact with the blockchain itself or the Explorer itself to confirm some data, like, for example, contract verifications. So let's go to my address. For this case, I prepared a sample contract. I created a Trump token here for Rootstock. So, okay, let's start by deploying it. I'm going to compile it. This is basically an RC20 token, so it has very much the same functionalities like a normal token. Let's deploy it by setting myself as the initial owner. This is a remix which I use for quick testing, quick contracts testing. So for this, I need to select a specific provider so we can use a Rootstock node. I'm using the Rootstock public nodes. And now I can actually proceed and deploy the contract. This is going to prompt me to confirm the transaction. Let's wait a bit. In the case of Rootstock, we have usually a block rate of about 33 seconds. So that is usually the time. We can see it in the latest transaction that is going to appear here. Let me check my address. Okay, it refreshed, as you can see. This is the transaction. And it actually took, what did it say? Well, it was actually like 30 seconds. We're going to show this tab again when we are going to, when we perform the transfers. So don't worry. Okay, I have here the contract. Now, if I go to the contract page, first in the transaction, we can see that we created the transaction to the contract created, okay? This is actually the normal behavior when you deploy a contract. So this is my address, and the one who receives the transaction is the contract created. So I'm going to enter to the contract, and here we have some data, okay? But by default, we don't have all the data, or we can't extract all the data from a contract by only having the code, okay? Here we are going to have a second tab, apart from general, that is the code tab, and it's going to showcase all the details for the contract itself, okay? This is because in blockchain, we promote the transparency of all the stuff. It's like, don't trust, verify. So the thing here is that you are able to verify the contract, so everyone can see what your contract does behind the scenes, okay? So let's verify it. When you click on verify, you're going to check, you're going to see this new page, which will require you to set some information for it before verifying it. So I'm going to select this option for the verification method, since I'm going to upload a file, the code file. The contract address is already entered there. And for the contract name, this must be the same that I use here, and the same name for the file when I'm going to apply it, okay? So I'm going to add here Trump token, and I'm going to set the source file. Okay, I didn't download it yet, so I'm going to do it now. Since I'm using Open Zeppelin contracts, I need to flatten this so I can have all the contracts in a single file. So I'm going to flatten this. And as I said before, I'm going to rename it. Oh, first I'm going to deploy it so it doesn't collide with the other one. Let's download it. Okay. Let's rename this to just Trump token. And now let's verify the contract. Let's upload the file so we can verify the contract. Great. Now, the compiler. In this case, I use the 8.23 version. Okay, 8.22. Okay, great. So we are going to use that one.
As the version of Solidity, right?
Exactly, the Solidity compiler. You must explicit the very same, because otherwise you're going to have error for this. Yeah. Then the optimization, in this case, I didn't use any. Is used to actually make the contract perform better in the blockchain, depending on how much you're going to use it. But yeah, let's leave it in no. The EVM version, this is like versions from the blockchain itself, which the nodes itself are evolving in time. So this means more support for some new low-level operations or that kind of stuff. So in this case, I'm going to use the London EVM version. And then we have the constructor arguments tab. So, okay, in the constructor arguments input, we need to add all the information that the contract initially had. So in this case, I explicited my address, since I'm the owner of the contract. I'm going to take it from here. You can actually go here to MetaMask and take it from here to copy. And I'm going to add it here. In some cases, you will have the arguments encoded. This means that it's going to be a bunch of zeros. In that case, you can actually check this option, and that's it. Okay, now we have everything set. Let's verify the contract. This usually doesn't take that long. And once we have the contract verified, we are going to have multiple benefits for it that we are going to showcase in a moment. Okay, great. Now, since the contract is verified, we can see that the code tab now has a checkmark, and we are going to see a lot of information for the contract, okay? This is basically showing up what the contract can do. Here we can see the main file that was used for the creation of the contract. I mean, it wasn't one file, it's a bunch of files, but I flattened it into a single one, okay? And then we have all the information about the compilation settings and the arguments, okay? Cool. The thing is that now we can actually do two extra things here. First, we can actually play with the code itself by opening it in Remix. So if you see here, I'm going back to Remix, but for example, if you want to see what's all the data that I use, you're going to see it here, okay? You see the contract and all the data. Of course, since I upload a flattened file, you're going to see a flattened file. And we can also play with the contract itself, okay? This is called the contract interactions. And as you can see here, thanks to the verification, we can see all the what the contract can do. So we actually split the contract capabilities into two sections, which are the read contract functionalities and the write functionalities. Okay, for the read functionalities, we, for example, maybe want to read the balance that I have for a certain token. So, for example, here we need to set to explicit an address, and we can call the contract. Okay, the Explorer allows us to actually ask the contract, what's my balance? As you can see, I have this value, which is not really understandable. This is just an example of what it means to format the data. Normally, the contract might expose some methods so we can see the balance in a better way. For example, I here create a function for this. I'm going to actually call it again with my address. And we can see that I actually have a balance of 1,000 Trump tokens, okay? Why do we have a lot of zeros here? Because in blockchain, we need to store data efficiently, again, so we don't have some special stuff for the commas. We need to actually store the number of places we need to move to reconstruct the number. So here we have 18. If you remove 18 zeros, you have 1,000, okay? That's it. This is actually working for all the contracts. Okay, not for just this one. This is a standard. Great. As you can see, I have 1,000 tokens. Now, all the read functionalities don't cost anything, are instantly answered, okay? But for the write functionalities, we need to actually connect our wallet, since we need to create a transaction, since we are changing the blockchain state. Everything that changes the blockchain state needs to actually create a transaction for that. So I'm going to connect my wallet here. Okay, great, connected. This is the very same address. Yes, good. So here now we are able to call any method that we want. So for example, let's mint more tokens. I'm going to mint to my address, for example, 1,000 more. Now, we have two selectors here. The thing is that, as we know, for example, in Mainnet, all the transactions that we do, everything that we do costs money. So it's useful to have some kind of simulation for this. That's why we have this simulation option. This actually doesn't cost anything. And we can actually see the response, or we can see an error if it's going to throw an error, so we can prevent wasting money, because maybe it's not only just the cost of the transaction, which is actually, I think, 1 or 2 cents of dollar, but maybe you are going to transfer value here, and it can be, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that is really costly if it's going to fail. So we can simulate it here. So for example, let's mint here. Okay, we had an instant response. In this case, this method doesn't return any values. So this is most likely that it's going to go fine, because we didn't have any errors. And now we can actually transact. This option is going to create the transaction. Let's mint it. Let's confirm that. Once you create the transaction, we are going to wait for it to be mined. And we have the hash here in case you want to see it. This is what you are talking about, Olia, about the state. You can see that it's actually pending. And well, after some moments, we can see. Let's wait for it to be mined.
It always takes forever when you do a demo.
Yeah, right. I was thinking this.
Yeah.
Final. Great. So this one took a bit longer, but yeah. Awesome. Now we have the transaction completed. We can check the logs. In this case, we can see that this was actually a transfer. And since we have a token transfer, it's going to appear in this specific tab. for a transaction, okay? We have here the value, the one who received them, and the one who sent it. Since we are minting tokens, we are creating it from nothing, from the air. It's a common pattern to use the 0 address, okay? Good. Let's go back to the contract interactions tab. Now, since I changed my balance by minting it and transferring it to me, now I should have a different balance. Let's check it now. Previous value was 1,000, now it should be 3,000. Okay? That's basically it. As you can see, we can do a lot of things here. It depends on what contract you created, but you can actually do whatever you want from this very same tab. An extra thing I'm going to show you is that in case you want to actually see your token, because by default it's not being detected here in Rootstock, you can actually take the contract address. In this case, I'm going back to the general tab. I'm going to take the address and here import the token. I passed it, and you're going to see that it's detected as the Trump token with 18 decimals. Yes, I did import it. You can see my balance here, and I'm going to import it. Great. And from MetaMask itself, you could actually send the tokens to and perform like normal. Okay, great. Then we have some minor stuff. In case you want to download the data, you can actually go in. It depends. You can do this in almost every tab. You can go, for example, to the blocks tab and download the data, okay? You can actually download the listed fields that you see here, or download all the block data that is way more than this. Also, you can choose the format, which can be JSON, which is used for developers usually, and a CSV in case you need to apply to an Excel file. Okay. And I think that's basically it. As a wrap up, we can say that we showcase the main importance of an Explorer, why does it exist, what information we can actually see, and we also learned how to interact with contract data or verify contracts. So that's it. Hope you like it, and thank you.
Listen, thanks, Nico. Thanks for joining. Thanks for showing us around. I hope you learned something new today. If you have any requests or something in terms of features you would like to see, maybe get in touch. Do join our Discord community. We do hang out there. The team is great. We'll wait for you over there. And as always, happy building.